Welcome, Star Wars fans, to episode 147 of Tatooine Sons.
Sometimes my ears bleed when he says the word
you told me to get closer to the mic, I am.
Okay.
While everybody is so busy poking fun at the bad dialogue.
Really bad dialogue.
It's very bad. It seems that the amazing lightsaber battle between the Jedi and the Battle Droids is overlooked. And then there's that intense scene where Count Dooku reveals that a Sith Lord is in charge of the Galactic Senate.
Yeah.
But let's dig into Act 2 of Attack of the Clones.
Act 2. You got it?
Yes.
Attack 2.
Attack to 2?
Attack to 2. But before
that
all...
could be a planet in Star Wars.
Attack to 2? Yeah, that'd be cool. But before that...
5 times fast.
Dominic Jones from the Star Wars Underworld joins us for Hot Takes.
So Samuel the Hutt.
Yes.
Should we let Dominic on, or should we just not pick up the Zoom when he connects, since he ghosted you originally 4 years ago?
I think that's only fair.
You think we'll just let it ring for a while?
Yeah.
Okay.
Together, we will destroy the Sith.
It's time for Tatooine Sons.
It's true. All of it.
What is the name of the porg on the Millennium Falcon?
Force is strong in my family.
What do you think his name is? It's a big moment.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Maybe Turbis?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Turbis? Pablo, if you're listening to this live stream, that porg's name is now Turbis. It's a good Star Wars name.
We're not done yet.
These guys recorded an awesome podcast called Tatooine Sons. Everybody listen to that.
Welcome, Star Wars fans. This is Tatooine Sons, your weekly look at all things Star Wars from the unique perspective of a father sharing his love for the amazing space fantasy saga with his two sons. I'm BB Nate, and I'm joined first by my brother, Samuel the Hutt.
Chew to Star Wars fans, thanks for tuning in. And if you're not a Star Wars fan, then I bet you still have some favorite deleted scenes in your favorite movies.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting that for your Achuta, but I know where you're going with that.
I got you.
Yeah, a little foreshadowing there.
And of course, you can't have Star Wars without bizarre father figures. So on that note, here's my dad's bow tie Jedi guy.
Kind of tired. Just got off an airplane.
Yeah, it's been a day for you.
I've been up since 4-ish, and then did a bunch of stuff with some churches in Atlanta, and then got on an airplane and flew home. Now we're going to finish recording, so this can get up by, for you guys, Monday morning. So. Yeah. But that's cool. That's
yeah.
So I figured a good conversation started because we kind of bagged on WandaVision a couple weeks ago. Do you remember? Yeah. Not really bagged on it, but it was like, I'm not sure. I hope it gets better. I think it will, but I hope it does. It did.
Yeah.
With it.
It's not a Marvel podcast, but we'll talk about it first.
Is it a spoiler? It's Monday.
So the ban is lifted.
The ban is lifted, so we can talk about it. Quicksilver.
What? Fox Quicksilver.
Well, yeah, Quicksilver is one thing. Having it be that Quicksilver is a whole nother beast.
Wanda's the bad guy of this phase.
Yeah,
probably.
I'm convinced. There's some people that think that this Eric Peters, is that his name? He's the bad guy.
No.
Yeah.
Nah.
Okay. I think that she'll be the bad guy for the trilogy of WandaVision, Spider-Man 3, and Doctor Strange.
Okay.
But I do think that Kang
the Conqueror
will be the main bad guy because they cannot waste that in a single Ant-Man movie. He's like
what? They brought in Kang?
Yeah, they announced that he's going to be in the third Ant-Man.
Oh, yeah.
He's the main bad guy for him.
Well, they brought in Thanos a couple of times before he was Thanos.
The thing is he's the main bad guy for one villain already. I mean, they brought in Thanos for like a couple scenes here and there, but he's like the villain for that movie and maybe hopefully more because he's a really good bad guy.
I think it's setting it up to make her the bad guy. I think that she's going to lose complete control over her. She's causing the multiverse to happen. That's why Quicksilver from the X-Men universe came in. Which then does that mean that we can get Magneto and Mystique and Nightcrawler and Deadpool and all of them in this?
Even though he's old, Hugh Jackman still has to play Wolverine.
Could you imagine like Hugh Jackman and
Captain America.
Well,
in some weird
Falcon. No, I mean, what you could go with the Captain America could come back from an alternate universe.
Captain Hydra.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just say I was at lunch today with one of my colleagues after we did what we had to do, and he was talking. He was asking about this podcast because he knows that we do this, and we were talking about how when Mandalorian was out, Star Wars is front and center for everybody,
right?
And listening to podcasts in the geekdom, but right now it's Marvel, it's WandaVision, and that's fine. And he's like, is that any good? I'm like, what? He's like, I only watched like the first 2 episodes.
That's the problem.
And he's like, I didn't get it. I'm like, please just watch up until the end. I said, are you an MCU fan? He's like, well, yeah. I mean, I watched all the MCU movies. It's pretty cool. I'm like, okay. I mean, are you like, Marvel, all the Marvel movies? And I'm trying to be like discreet
enough,
without saying Quicksilver's in this, or anything but
because if he has,
I mean, have you do you get into Deadpool and the old Spider-Man movies, the Sony Spider-Man movies and the X-Men movies? He's like, yeah, I really liked all those. I'm like, okay, watch till episode 5,
right?
Watch through. If you don't want to watch it after episode 5, you don't have to. So
right, you got to give it a chance.
It's very important.
It's cool. Sam,
yes,
Valentine's Day came early.
Yeah. So,
how'd that go?
A little explanation for people because this is
go for it.
Pretty early, even on Monday. So we were up in Alabama for some stuff for about a week, and I was gonna try and celebrate Valentine's Day with Savannah, my girlfriend. For those of you who don't know,
they all know.
I'm flexing it anyway. Yeah. I would have liked to have celebrated on Valentine's Day, but we're having guests come in town and stay at our house. We're having 6
people
guests.
come on Valentine's Day.
Whew. And 4 days.
There was no way for it to happen on Valentine's. So we're like, screw it. We'll push it up early. So we did it, I think it was the 4th. So we're like, yeah, this is the perks of long distance relationships. You get to celebrate Valentine's whenever you want. So we had a good Valentine's Day. We went to this really, really fancy hotel and restaurant stuff that's off the bay up in Fairhope, Alabama. It was gorgeous. Had a nice dinner. Then we went to downtown Fairhope, which and got some ice cream and stuff there, and walked around for a bit. It was fun.
Yeah,
it was a lot.
You had a good time. She liked it.
Yes.
Yeah,
she was very happy.
Good.
So.
That's awesome. I'm not happy with you. Every time we get to the banter section for this podcast, the Muppet Show theme gets stuck in my head.
How'd this happen? How did I? This is not my fault today.
Yes, because you mentioned it 4 podcasts ago, and
when does that come out on Disney Plus?
February,
soon.
Yeah, really soon.
Friday, maybe this coming fall about the 12th.
I think 12th
might be this
12th. Yeah.
It's time to get things started. Yeah, I'm super excited about the Muppets. All right. So then on the drive to Alabama and back, we listened to the High Republic.
Yeah,
the first one, Light of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm. How was the second one? You listened to part.
I've always listened to part of it, but then I got distracted with a bunch of work.
It was a YA, right?
No. This is Light. This is
Chaos Rising.
No, this is
the Claudia Gray novel, right?
Yeah, the Claudia Gray is not
Into
YA.
the Dark.
Yeah,
that's a 12 and up.
Is it?
Yep.
Well, it's Claudia Gray. She did Master and Apprentice.
Didn't she do? She did not do
Lost Stars.
Yeah,
she did. That was her first.
Yeah, that was
it was huge.
Deal.
And it's still huge. And this has very Master and Apprentice vibes to me.
Is it good?
Yeah, so far what I've heard. But then I got distracted and I lost my place, and it went back 25 years. Couple of times, and I had no idea what was happening. So I'm like, I'm going to have to stop and start again some other time because I'm lost right now. So maybe I'll listen to that a little bit.
Light of the Jedi was good though. It was long.
It was really long.
But
and as I can say, Charles Soule, this is his first novel. He was a fantastic comic
I think
writer.
he's done other novels, just not Star Wars novels.
Well, he did Dark Lord of the Sith. Fantastic comic.
He's done the couple others.
He's done the new Star Wars series, which is also fantastic.
The main
I've
line,
read a couple issues, and you can tell he's more of a comic writer than he is.
Everything's
a novel.
very descriptive.
He's a critic.
Well,
a critic.
I can notice because you don't have to rely on those things for comics. You don't have to describe the scenes; those are already drawn out for you. It's a 2-person job or more when it comes to comics. For this one, you're relying on one person. Cool. And he was just really over-describing.
Overall, though, what did you think about the High Republic?
It's a good book. It was long and slow. I think it could have got into places a little bit faster, but it was good. The ending.
A little sidebar though, it was funny. So on the drive up, I was exhausted for some reason, so I ended up falling asleep for a bit. So I was like lost for like the last half of that drive. So we were driving back, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening, but we were trying to figure out what to listen to, and we're like, yeah, we'll just re-listen to the book. But I'm like, I have no idea what's happening in the story right now. So it was up to Mom to fill me in, and that was funny. I mean, it was adequate enough. I knew what was happening, but
she was paying attention because she was driving.
She was like, the bad guys do this, and then like she didn't use any of like the terms and stuff. It was so fun, but she did great.
I was in big trouble when you guys
You
finished.
were. She was not happy.
As you know, she's not a Star Wars fan.
No, she's not. So I get a text message last night. I had to. So Sam and Nate and Mom drove back from Alabama yesterday, while I drove in a rental car up to Atlanta for these meetings I had today. And I listened to the rest of High Republic on the way to Atlanta, while they will listen to the rest of High Republic on the way back to Orlando. And I got to the room, and I got some amazing mole from Mexico. This Mexican restaurant was as legit of a Mexican restaurant as I'd ever been to. First of all, I'm just doing that thing on my iPhone, restaurants near me. And then I scroll over to Mexican, and I'm looking, it's like 5 out of 5 stars with like 200 reviews. Ooh. And I'm like, ooh. So I look at the website, and I look at the menu, and it's like specialties. I'm like, all right, click specialties, because that's what you want when you go to a restaurant like that. Yeah. And the first specialty was mole. I love good mole.
And you don't get it often.
I don't. And then I see the picture, and it's like, oh my goodness. So I get to the restaurant. It is packed. There's not a seat available. People are sitting you order at a counter, and then you sit down in your seats. Or it was confusing. I don't get it. It was very Latino, and I was the only non-Latino in the room when I walked in. And I go in, and I'm like trying to figure out, do I sit down? Do I go to the counter? And everything on the menu inside there was Spanish. And they're all speaking Spanish to me. And I'm like, so they had to find another employee to come over to help that could speak enough English to help me. And I'm like, I just want something to go. And she's like, she's real sweet. She said she'd take care of me. So we go over and we order it, and we get it all done. I get back to the room, and I'm eating this mole that is just, the chicken is falling off the bone, and they've got fresh made tortillas. And I'm putting the mole with the chicken inside the tortillas, and it was so good. And then I get a text message, and Mom says, "You are in so much trouble,
so much freaking trouble.
You are in so much freaking trouble." That's not
okay.
A good thing. So I'm like, I'm literally going through the last 72 hours, and I'm like, I don't think I did anything.
And it was funny because we were in our end, we're sitting in the car, and we're like, oh, Dad's probably freaking out right now. And then the next thing we know, the car starts ringing because you're calling her phone. We're like, oh, that's Dad.
Yeah, so I call him like, what's going on? She starts yelling at me on the phone because Mom likes stories that have a very clear beginning and a very clear resolution. And the High Republic book didn't have a resolution. The Nihil are out there, and more's going to happen. And it was setting up the story. It was like chapter 1. She was so pissed off.
She was not happy.
I liked it. I think it's good. I thought
it was good. It's a good setup. I'm very interested to see where they go with the saga.
The opening to Into the Dark is running parallel to the opening of
Light of the Jedi.
Light of the Jedi.
Really?
So it's happening in concert at the time. At the opening, but in a completely different part of the galaxy and story going on. So it's really interesting. And there's things if you've listened to or read Light of the Jedi, about some casualties in the story that apply to you're in the beginning of this book, and I'm like, wait a second, that person. And anyway, I don't want to give it away, but they're like, I'm like, this is going to get bad for this Padawan. And, yeah, it does. So,
should we? I thought we were going to let it keep ringing.
Let's just move on to the poll.
Doom, doom, doom. Doom, doom, doom.
Skype? Yeah,
doom,
that's a throwback.
doom, 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 doom. Should we just let it ring? Make him call back 3-4 times? And we're doing it Zoom, but...
Yeah, let's just do the rest. Let's just go to poll.
It's like admit. If anybody that knows Zoom now, the new features in Zoom that happened during COVID, there's like a waiting room, and then you have to admit them. So I'm waiting to... I'm just going to make him wait for a little while.
We need a Jeopardy theme.
Yeah. Because I guess I'll start. I'll go ahead and we'll lead this in. What's your favorite deleted scene in Star Wars? Andor is heading in a new direction, and the Bad Batch might be here before we know it. Yeah. If I decide to let him in, Dominic Jones will be joining us from the Star Wars Underworld, and we'll get his hot takes on that. That's all up next.
This is where the fun begins.
Well, you want the bad news or the really bad news?
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Hey, Dominic Jones is here.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, which is really cool because, when we invite him to come on our podcast, we mean it. Sorry.
Do we bring that up every time?
No. Yeah. Go ahead.
I think you have to. I think I would be disappointed.
Is that retribution?
Yeah.
Let's just relive that classic Dominic moment.
No. Hey,
we do call you responsible for this show. Yeah. Though, so because it was our we
were like, fine, we'll just do it without him.
It was kind of bitterness. It was bitterness on our end that inspired this. So you can take credit for Turbis because Turbis would have never happened without that. Yeah. So Turbis the Porg, it's all yours. So.
I did that. That's good. I was going to say I'll take all credit and/or blame whatever people want to throw my way.
There's some people out there.
So we'll blame him for the top 10 worst things to happen to Star Wars thing.
2018. One of the top things is in fandom, in online fandom, according to the AV Club, was a thread that we put out where Ryan Johnson spoke into it and it blew up. And so AV Club listed it in their 2018 worst moments in internet histoy that year. So that was fun.
So yeah, Dominic, you get the blame for that one.
So it was number 2. So
why is that not on all of your banner artwork? That should be
a good point.
How they put Oscar nominee for best original score. You guys should put
number 2 worst thing to happen in 2018 on the internet.
It was a lot of fun. It was there was a lot of weird stuff that happened the end of that year with that. Mark Hamill was confirmed the whole Boba Fett was his mother idea that he put out before George Lucas on one of our threads. So that was just
a weird year for us.
That was a weird year.
It was. But enough about all that stuff. We've got some Star Wars to talk about. So let's do it. So it's a sad day for Star Wars fans this last few days. Tricia Noble, Star Wars actress and singer, reportedly passed away. She was 76 years old. She was in Star Wars, but not really in Star Wars because she played Jobal Naberi. She was the mother of Padme Amidala. But all of her scenes got cut. And so they were just deleted scenes in both episode 2 and episode 3. So it's kind of a sad moment, but let's talk a little bit about deleted scenes with Star Wars. Dominic, what's your favorite deleted scene from Star Wars?
Oh man. I have a real soft spot for the deleted scene from Return of the Jedi where you see Luke Skywalker building his lightsaber. It's a cool scene in and of itself, but I sort of have a soft spot for it because I remember at my very first convention, which was Star Wars Celebration 5, one of the highlights for me was getting to see this panel that George Lucas did where he was interviewed by Jon Stewart. And at the end of that panel, the big reveal was that the Star Wars films were coming out on Blu-ray and that they were going to have all these deleted scenes on them. And that was that was sort of their big moment at the end of that panel. It was their Chewie we're home moment where they showed this deleted scene that nobody had ever seen. It was new, old Star Wars, and it was wild. So anytime, one of those compilations of Star Wars deleted scenes pops up on YouTube in my recommendations, that's always the one that sort of makes me smile the most because it just it takes me back to a very, very fun morning and seeing that scene be revealed for the first time and having everybody go nuts when that lightsaber came on.
That's pretty cool story.
Yeah, that was good. All right.
Ours are going to be a little anticlimactic after that. All right, BB.
That's why he's the guest.
That's right.
I don't know very many, but I really did enjoy the whole. Okay, what I think was the worst scenes to cut out that were way more important to the story.
I know where he's going with this.
We were watching the 4-hour supercut of Revenge of the Sith, and we had the whole political scenes with Padme and how she notices that maybe the Separatists are not very much in the wrong, maybe we are, and that leads up so much to the final scenes with her of "This is how liberty dies," that very popular line. Yeah. And the thing is, in the supercut, it made so much more sense because they put them in there, and it was really well done. And I loved those scenes because I felt like they were so important. Now every time I watch Revenge of the Sith, I will probably watch those scenes because they're so important to the story that I don't understand why they felt like it would be better to leave them out. So
those were cool. That was a cool. Did you see the supercut, Dominic? Have you watched that yet?
I haven't seen the supercut, but I know the scenes you're talking about. And Revenge of the Sith and Attack of the Clones, to me, they have the most interesting deleted scenes. Like, the original trilogy deleted scenes are fun. The Phantom Menace ones are fun. And what we saw of the sequel trilogy ones are fun. But the ones for Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith in particular, they feel so much more integral to everything that's going on. And I do wonder if they're a little bit of a reaction to Phantom Menace. And maybe George got a little bit gun shy after all the reaction to those movies was, we don't want Senate scenes or politics or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so he wound up, sort of holding back on those scenes. But those scenes you're talking about there, Nate, in Revenge of the Sith are, like, they almost feel essential. Like, it's the setup for the Rebel Alliance, and it's not there.
Right. And they clearly made it pretty far in the process. I mean, they've got all the effects and stuff done. They just, at the end, cut them out for some reason.
You got to check out that supercut if you ever have the chance, because that was
so amazing.
As much of a Clone Wars fan as you are, seeing the Siege of Mandalore arc integrated into Revenge of the Sith and seamlessly, and then the way that they tie it up with an after credit scene, we freaked out a little bit. Yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah. All right, Sam, what's yours?
So, as anybody who listens to this podcast knows, we're huge fans of the Mortis arc from Clone Wars. And Dominic will appreciate this too, but I still remember, like, the only scene that really comes to mind that's been cut that I want them to put back in, other than Revenge of the Sith, was the scene from the Mortis arc where they were going to have Revan and Bane and stuff show up when, like, Anakin is like having those visions and stuff. That would have been huge, and I would have loved for that to come in, not only because it would satisfy Old Republic fans, right? Because it gives them Revan, which is this huge character. But I feel like it would have been interesting to see. I can see why they cut it out, but I really wish that would have made it into the Clone Wars.
Probably the best place to introduce those characters would have been the Mortis arc.
And it doesn't impact future canon that much. No. They're dead. They're thousands of years old. But all it does is open up the ability for them to go back in that timeline.
And now that they've been mentioned in a visual dictionary, it's all okay, because that means that they are canon, which is a little bit weird to make these big characters canon in a visual dictionary. It's a little bit anticlimactic, but hey, at least they're canon.
Yeah,
that's my deleted scene.
Yeah, for me, I think I'm going to go back to the original 1977 Star Wars and the fun stuff with Biggs in Mos Eisley and Tashi Station, and just all the fun stuff of getting to understand that character Biggs just a little bit. Before we have that, super emotional moment in the trench run when he's lost, it's like, oh yeah, there was that friend. I remember him mentioning that at some point in the story, and then it doesn't mean the same. Of course, Alex over at Star Wars Explained, worships that guy. So, yeah,
with good reason. I think fellow Canadian Garrick.
This is true. Yeah, he's a good guy. So, a lot of fun. Cool. All right. Well, we've got some other stuff coming up here in the future with Star Wars. Can you believe that just a few years ago we wondered if we'd ever get TV other than some animated series here and there, and now we've got all this stuff going on. We've got the Andor series coming pretty soon. They're filming it, at least getting ready to discussing. I think it was Now Discussing Films confirmed recently that filmmakers Susanna White and Ben Karen have been added to the roster of as directors for the Rogue One prequel series. Let's see. White previously directed Boardwalk Empire. Sam and Nathan are like, "What's that?"
I know what that is.
Oh, you know what that is?
Of course.
Steve Buscemi and stuff. Yeah, and Billions, among many others, as well as the feature film Nanny McPhee Returns. We won't hold it against Susanna on that one. All right. Interestingly, she also directed 2 Disney Plus Star Wars stars. We've got Anders Stellan Skarsgård who's also from all the Thor stuff. You guys know who that one is, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And then Obi-Wan himself, Ewan McGregor, in Our Kind of Traitor. And then Karen comes to Andor having helmed 11 episodes of the Netflix super hit, The Crown, not Lemony Snicket, like you guys have been watching.
You mean Series of Unfortunate Events?
Well, you know that one.
It's the same thing.
Same thing. And he's going to be serving also as an executive producer. So, Dominic, what are your thoughts on the Andor series? Is everybody's thinking Kenobi and other stuff, but where do you come from on the Andor series? You excited?
Oh yeah, I feel like Andor could be kind of the sleeper hit of all of these Disney Plus series that we've got coming up. Sort of the same way that Rogue One was. I think going into Rogue One, it was a Star Wars movie, so people were expecting it to be big, but I don't think everybody was quite ready for how big it wound up being. At Celebration Orlando back in 2017, right, when we first met, and then I forgot to ever get in contact with you again. I remember the Last Jedi panel kicked off with Kathleen Kennedy basically thanking everybody for making Rogue One the hit that it was. And so I think that Andor, it's going to carry some of that Rogue One momentum forward. And while everybody is super focused on Ewan McGregor coming back for Kenobi and future seasons of The Mandalorian, because we're already highly invested in The Mandalorian, Andor's just going to kind of keep working. They're going to keep working away on it kind of under the radar. It's not got the same sort of, I think, level of attention to it just yet. But then when it drops, I think it has the potential to feel the most different of all the stuff they're doing, because it's a spy series. We haven't really had a spy series set within the Star Wars universe. And so I think it could wind up surprising some folks, and I'm really hoping that there's more of it to come. That it isn't one and done like Kenobi. And for as much has been made about Alan Tudyk not being in season 1, when you sort of read between the lines of what he says, and you don't even have to read between the lines. He comes out and says this. He says, I will be in it eventually, which to me says there's plans for more, and so that's exciting to me too. That we can, look forward to these characters that we meet and get invested in the series. We can expect to see more from them. We won't lose them again immediately once the series is done, which is kind of the sad thing about Rogue One, is you get so invested in all of those characters and then they all die. Right. So the only way we can get one of them back is to go back in time.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Sam, you had something you were going to say.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do think it's got the potential to really surprise some fans, because it's not one of the big hits like Rogue One. But I'm a little nervous. I mean, you mentioned it being like a spy film, and that's kind of where we've all been talking about it. But all these new directors have worked on some really weird stuff. Like, weird as in not
eclectic, all over the board.
Eclectic, that's the word I'm looking for. And so I'm a little nervous that the feel of the show will kind of feel disjointed. Like the directors are trying to do too many different things at once, and it could confuse the audience, and it just won't play right the way we need to. Rogue One was a war film through and through, and it worked. I think the Cassian series needs to stay true to what it's trying to be, which I think we can all agree is trying to be a spy film. If they can stay true to that, then yes, I think it has the potential to become a fan favorite like The Mandalorian in Star Wars.
Awesome.
I mean, and there was one thing you forgot to mention about Ben Karen.
Okay.
Which
Nerd.
I know.
Hey, hold on. I'm going to say, before you even go anywhere, he's got to have something to do with Batman. All right, go.
No.
Okay.
I just knew about this. He directed a few episodes of, this will be important for us, a few episodes of Sherlock.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Which makes me very excited, because that show...
That was good. That was a good show.
And it makes me excited because we have Boardwalk Empire, drama. We have Sherlock, a mystery thriller. We have the director of the Bourne trilogy.
The writer of it, Tony Gilroy. Yeah.
And he's spied people. So I'm excited for the different kind of directors and what their backgrounds and everything. But the thing is we had Taika Waititi directing episodes of Mandalorian, and he did Thor Ragnarok. We had Peyton Reed, who did Ant-Man. So it's always been, they've been bringing in directors that have a very wide and vast background that it doesn't fit in with any of the other directors. And so if it works, all of the films and movies and TV shows that the directors for Andor have done have all been serious dramas and are not comedies.
Except for Nanny McPhee.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
But it's exciting. I'm excited for what it's going to be. And I think that there's so much coming out that it's overwhelming.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It could bring in new ideas fresh ideas that are good for Star Wars. I mean, look at The Mandalorian. It was new and different. Even the soundtrack was way different than Star Wars, but it redefined Star Wars in a good way and people like it. So it's a risk, but it could pay off.
Dominic, are you a fan of like the Bourne movies and all of that? Because Tony Gilroy came in and saved the day when it came to Rogue One, and he's going to be a big part of this one. Are you a fan of the Bourne trilogies or Bourne series?
I've seen all the Bourne movies. I enjoyed them. I don't really remember them all that well. I kind of want to, at some point between now and Andor coming out, sit down and rewatch them. But I sort of feel like with those, you can't argue with the success, and they did so much to play in a genre that had been kind of, abandoned for a time. It was only Bond.
And they reinvented it in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it was really up until those movies were coming out. You had the Bond movies, and they were in their kind of cheesy-ish phase, and then the Bourne movies come out, and then you follow that up with Casino Royale on the Bond front, and that's a Bond movie doing a lot of Bourne things.
It is,
yeah, that's true.
And so it's I think he did a lot of good stuff there, and so I'm really curious and excited to see what he does with Andor. But the other director that they've got on board for this show is this guy Toby Haynes. And he directed a bunch of episodes of Doctor Who.
Nice.
And some of the best ones, in my opinion, some of the ones with the best energy, the ones that just sort of feel like they're just constantly going. And if you can bring that to a spy/Star Wars story, I feel like that could be a really winning combination. And he's actually, I'm looking at his Wikipedia right now. He's tapped to do episodes 1, 2, and 3 of the series. So he might
he might get
to set the tone for Andor. And I think that's it. He's a good guy to start with.
That's awesome. What we saw in Mandalorian season 1, that you can have Star Wars without the Jedi being front and center, and then that kind of flew out the window as we went through season 2. But Rogue One, it accomplished the same thing. Can the Andor series, Dominic, can it function in the Star Wars universe without bringing in a ton of Jedi stuff?
Yeah, one of the things that was really interesting about Rogue One was how it handled the Force, right? Because it was a whole bunch of characters that none of them could use the Force. Only Darth Vader and Leia, and those two are barely in the movie, are the only Force sensitives in the movie. The rest of them, they have varying degrees of relationship with it. But over the course of the movie, you come to see what the Force means to the Rebel Alliance and means to people who aren't Jedi, or at least to some people who aren't Jedi. And so I think you can kind of include the Force, because I don't think you can do Star Wars without the Force necessarily. And so you can include it without relying on Jedi by dealing with the fact that the Jedi aren't around, and that people in this era have complicated feelings about the Jedi. Cassian is supposedly he's from a planet that was controlled by the Separatists during the Clone Wars. So he's probably viewed the Jedi as villainous for even longer than people who lived under the Empire did. And so I think it would be interesting to have him kind of brushing up against Mon Mothma or Bail Organa, these characters who really do believe in the Jedi and who were devastated by the events of Order 66. And it would be interesting to see those sort of two perspectives clashing, because we know from Rebels and from Rogue One that things weren't always super tight within the Rebel Alliance. There were some splinter groups, like what Saw Gerrera was doing. And so it would be interesting to see how the Rebel Alliance navigates all these different sort of viewpoints, because that's what they are. They're an alliance of rebels. They're not one ideology necessarily. And so it would be interesting to see how they navigate that. And by putting the Jedi and the Force at the center of these conflicts, you can explore those ideas in Star Wars without ever actually having a Jedi show up, because I think that would be hard to do in this show.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's interesting when we see the Jedi from a perspective outside of the Jedi. So often, throughout the entire saga, we see most of the viewpoints of the Jedi are from devotees to the Jedi religion, right? But we got a taste of that from the second arc in the new Clone Wars series. I forget the sisters' names, but we saw them and they thought the Jedi were bad. Like, they were like, they're the reason I believe that they were saying like the Jedi were the reason their parents were dead and stuff, right? I don't remember that arc super well, but, we saw the Jedi from that perspective. It's interesting when we see like other people's perspectives. Some people may be like, "Oh yeah, the Force, it's a cool thing. I think the Jedi have a good point," but they're not like super strict about it. And then you might have people who are like, "The Jedi are like what's wrong with the galaxy and stuff."
And the complete opposite end of that spectrum too. The Jedi are all that's good.
Right, exactly.
The High Republic approach towards it, the way that it's viewed.
So I think that this casting series, it's going to deal a lot more with the underground and stuff because it's a spy thriller, and most of the time, unless you're James Bond, you're dealing with the gritty underworld of stuff, and that'll be an interesting way for them to talk about the Force without it having to be front and center, but also provide different perspectives of like what the galaxy thinks, especially after Order 66. We saw the sisters' perspective before that, while the Jedi were still in power. Now we're going to see what people think of the Jedi after Order 66.
Yeah, and this is the period where the Jedi are a legend. They're a myth, and they've been wiped out, and people are wondering if they, it's sort of that in between before Rey, where Rey's like, I thought they were a myth, and people still knew of the Jedi, but the perspective is really interesting. That's interesting. You brought up Clone Wars with that. We should probably talk about Bad Batch. A press release from the official Disney D23 website includes some information that in their spring issue of their magazine, they're going to be coming out with a full feature dedicated to the Bad Batch. It's going to come out in late February, so just a few weeks. It's going to have a feature interview with D. Bradley Baker. So
90% of the cast.
He's the whole show with that. So do you think he'll do it in different characters? No, I'm kidding. And it's going to be the first big marketing push going into the series after that trailer and things that we got on Disney Investor Day. There's a lot indicating here that this is the big push before what like Star Wars Newsnet is reporting is a potential spring release of the Bad Batch. With that. So Dominic, you're I think it's safe to say you're a mega fan when it comes to the Clone Wars. And this closed out, was part of that final season, with it. Does the Bad Batch feel like a sequel to the Clone Wars to you, or does it feel like it's going to be its own series?
It's interesting. It feels like it's going to be kind of a little bit of both. It almost feels like, because Clone Wars was so broad and it was this anthology series that would tell, a story of 4 episodes here with Jedi, and then a story with of 4 episodes here with clones, and then a story of 4 episodes here with bounty hunters. It could be really eclectic and really all over the place. And what Bad Batch feels like to me, based on, the one trailer that we've seen,
right,
it feels like they said, all right, we're going to do a sequel or a spin-off to those clone storylines. It's not a sequel to the Clone Wars as a whole, but it's a sequel to just the clone storyline. And just looking at, what we see in, again, the one teaser is, we see them going back to certain places that were really important to those clone storylines. Obviously, it seems like they're going to spend a lot of time on Kamino. It looks like there's some clone versus clone action in there. We see Grand Moff Tarkin, and he was a guy who always had some interesting opinions during the Clone Wars, and we know where he winds up in A New Hope. And so I feel like they could really, it's really exciting to me because it feels like we're just going to take what was some of the best stuff in the Clone Wars, which was the clone storyline, and we're just going to say, all right, this is the show now, and we're going to explore those stories really in depth for 12 episodes.
Of course, I will always be a Rebels apologist. It's my thing. But I am excited to see more of the Clone Wars and what it was, the clone part of the Clone Wars.
Right.
And so it's exciting. We might see Fennec Shand, which is also exciting.
Oh, I think we are.
And I loved the Bad Batch as a character. I'm loving to see if they had the chips during Order 66, or because of their genetic modifications, they weren't put in, or if Echo stops him, because with the cybernetic stuff, he most likely doesn't have a chip. And so I'm just excited to see what their reactions are to everything, what they deal with. If they don't have the chips, do they side with the Empire because they're taking orders from them, or do they say that that's not right and go away and do their own bounty hunter work? And it's very exciting. We don't know where it's going, and while I'm sad it's not Rebels sooner, we're at least getting something animated for sure. So
that's going to be awesome. Dominic, do you remember, did we see Echo at all in any of the Bad Batch trailers?
Yeah, I think he's there. He's not as prominent as the rest of the crew, but he's definitely with them.
Okay, that's good. I was a little worried that maybe he didn't have the chip and he didn't execute Order 66, but they considered him a traitor and took him out. So I was concerned about that.
Jeez, that got dark. Maybe that does happen. So yeah, no, I feel like this series kind of feels like it could be. I know a lot of Rogue One talk, but it almost feels like the Rogue One to Clone Wars. It's happening in between in a region we don't see much of this story. It's following characters. Well, okay, we didn't see them at all before in Rogue One, but it feels like that. It's related to the overall story, but it's not required almost. Am I excited for it? Absolutely. I loved the Bad Batch. I was excited as soon as I saw them at Celebration, and they did that clip where they were like taking on that whole battalion gosh, why am I wanting to call them stormtroopers? Battle droids. That's it. I loved it, and I'm excited to see them work more as a team. But I feel like ultimately it's just going to be a fun story for like hardcore Star Wars fans, right? People who love Clone Wars and stuff, but it's not going to be like required to even watch the Clone Wars and stuff.
I remember the first time I heard the leak about this happening. I'm like, nah, it's not going to happen. They're going to do something Rebels because it's too soon after Clone Wars season 7. It's like, it's Rebels' turn now. And I heard about it. I remember telling Dad, I don't want that to happen, but it's Star Wars. I'll watch it if it does, but I don't want it to.
Hey, Dominic, there's a theory out there that I'm not sure if you've heard it bantered around, but that the Bad Batch are the ones that actually rescued Grogu and got him out of the temple. What would you think about a storyline where that's possible?
It feels like Mandalorian. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it kind of feels like the Mandalorian. Like that'd be the whole plot. They're saving this baby from people hunting him down.
No, I don't mean like I don't think that's the storyline, but I think it like an arc or an episode. Oh, okay. When we see Order 66. So, what would you think about that, Dominic?
I think it could be cool. It would certainly make for great synergy. But ultimately, I think I don't think it's likely to happen. And personally, I think I'm looking for the type of crossover I like between my Star Wars shows is stuff like, I'm really excited to see Fennec Shand in this. Like that's the sort of Mando crossover I'm looking for. I don't feel you need to tie in Bad Batch with Mandalorian. That said, it's certainly a fun theory because, I mean, these characters are around at the same time that Grogu would be rescued. So, there is a part of me that also feels like you just sort of go, why not? Let's make them the heroes too.
Yeah, no, I mean, if we would have thought, halfway through season 1 of The Mandalorian that the final chapter of season 2 would have a CGI Luke Skywalker showing up, we would have probably been like, we don't really need that. And we didn't, but it was pretty freaking cool. So to get it. So
yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah, the best things in Star Wars, the best announcements to me are the ones that are kind of unexpected, the ones where you're like, I did not see that coming, or I didn't think I needed that until they do it. And then you're like, oh, that's exactly what I needed.
A surprise to be sure, but a welcome one.
Exactly.
Sorry. I had to throw a prequel meme in there.
And so that's what I'm sort of hoping for from Bad Batch. Like if you had given me 10 choices for what a Clone Wars spinoff could be, I don't know if I would have picked the Bad Batch. But when it started to be rumored and then it was eventually announced, the thing that excited me about it was the fact that it just felt like so off the board, so out there as like, who would have thought that these are the guys that are getting their spinoffs? And so I like that they tried to do something kind of weird like that instead of going for the obvious, let's make a Han Solo movie. Oh wait, so they already did that. Or let's make, an Obi-Wan Kenobi series. It sort of feels fun that it's it is sort of weird and out there and not the first choice.
Yeah, there's a lot of the casual Star Wars fans that watch the movies and probably the Mandalorian now that are going to be like, what is this Bad Batch thing?
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hey, Dominic, our February theme, our topic for all February is we are breaking down act by act by act the Attack of the Clones. And, being a Clone Wars mega fan like we talked about and a big prequel fan, we wanted to get your thoughts. What are your thoughts? Now we're 17, 18 years from when the movie came out. What are your thoughts on Attack of the Clones and how it sits within the Star Wars universe?
Yeah, well, it's crazy. It's 19 years since Attack of the Clones. That doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem fair.
Wow.
It's what makes Attack of the Clones stand out to me is that it has, I think, the most unique action sequences of not just the prequel trilogy, but of the original 6 films. And you could maybe even make a case for all 9, right? You just think about the way it begins with that Coruscant speeder chase. We've seen starship battles and we've seen the pod race, but that was always people staying in their own ships. Right. And then Attack the Clones begins and there's Anakin jumping around and he sort of flops out of the ship and you get some great banter between the two of them when he falls and Obi-Wan's like, oh, I hate when he does that. And that whole sequence, that whole chase was like nothing we'd ever really seen before in Star Wars. And then you keep going and you get to why am I losing the ability to remember Star Wars characters' names? Jango Fett versus Obi-Wan. And, they describe it in, I think that one of the DVD commentaries is it's like an Indiana Jones style fight. It's a throwdown it's not a clean lightsaber duel with fencing experts. It's, one guy with all of these little tricks, silly tricks and nonsense, you might even call them. And the other guy's got a lightsaber and they just throw down in the rain and it's awesome. And it's crazy to see them sort of going at each other like that. And then you get to Geonosis and the final battle there in the arena. And then that sort of spreads out beyond that. And we'd never seen action on that scope in Star Wars before, and ground action in particular. Right. Like, Rise of Skywalker kind of, ratchets up the scale completely in terms of space battle actions, but on the ground like that, there's still nothing quite like it as Attack of the Clones. And then you close out on a lightsaber duel featuring Yoda, which nobody ever expected that. So Attack of the Clones, it kind of changed the game a little bit in terms of what you should expect in terms from Star Wars action sequences. It took the sort of classic models and really built on them in interesting ways.
Yeah, it's a great film. We were talking about it last week as we were just kind of digging into the first act, and the realization came to me that as we make fun of the memes that can come from the prequels, and we make fun of some of the clunky dialogue and the acting that's really about that dialogue in a lot of ways. I don't blame the actors all the time for it. But you take all of those things out and you just look at this story, and the story of Attack of the Clones is a really, really powerful story. It's a great Star Wars story. And it's been a lot of fun checking it out. Hey, we are super excited to have had you on here, Dominic. We want you to tell everybody all about the underworld and all the stuff that you got going on before we let you go.
Cool. So everybody can check out the Star Wars Underworld podcast. We record those live Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern time over on a website called Mixler. So if you go to mixler.com and you search for channel 1138 on Thursday nights, that's when we record those live, and we have a lot of fun doing the live show. And then we release those on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all the usual podcast places immediately thereafter. So it's there for you on Friday morning. And then whenever there's something else going on in Star Wars, we do a special spin-off show about it. So we've got our entire season 2 of Radio Razor Crest, which was our Mandalorian breakdown podcast. Those are all available, as is the Clone Wars Strikes Back. And I'm sure we'll have something fun for Bad Batch whenever that comes out in the next 2 to 4 months.
Whenever that is. Hey, are you guys going to rename Radio Razor Crest after what happened?
We're still not sure. Unfortunately, there's not another season of Mandalorian for a very long time, so we're able to sort of kick that decision down the road for a little while. But that was a funny moment for me, and it's not a funny moment in the episode, but when the ship blew up, it was like between our name for that podcast and the Hasbro HasLab. Boy, I was like, oh my God, so much was invested in this thing and they just blew it up.
Yeah. I know that I know there's one of the members of tatooinesons is pretty excited about the book of Boba Fett that's coming up. Yes. So I don't know, maybe that guy can come on the show when you guys do your spin-off series on that one, and he can go on the book of your book of Boba Fett series on that. Thank you so much, Dominic. We can't wait to do it again sometime.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks a lot.
Are you brainless?
I never asked that question until after I've done it. What?
No! All right, we can be nice now.
We have to?
Yeah, he's so cool.
He is cool.
I love there's that word that he says, against.
Against?
He says it every time I listen to his show. I hear him say against. And I'm like, that's so cool. I like him.
Yeah, he's cool.
Fun guest.
Well spoken.
Not as well, I'm bragging about you guys being well spoken. He's actually a lot more well spoken than you are.
He's been doing this a lot longer.
I don't know how long he's been doing this, but a long time. But I'm trying to think about how old Ben would have been. Ben Hart from the Star Wars Underworld would have been when he started the Underworld with it. So it's just, I'm just curious. It's fun to see how that moment at Star Wars Celebration here in Orlando spurred this whole thing. We were joking with him about it as well, off recording, about it, kind of like he's to blame for Tatooine. So, all right, this week's poll, last week's poll. Anyway, that one. It's which is the biggest moment in Act 1 of Attack of the Clones? We had the assassination attempt to Padme and Anakin and the clones, and I forgot to put Shmi on there.
Oops.
So 31.6% assassination attempt. 18.4% say Padme and Anakin. And the clones got 50% because it's called Attack of the Clones.
Whoa.
Yeah. And we had lots of comments about the clones on there. We got a couple here. So
this is from Ramon Urquiza?
Sorry if we've botched that.
I totally botched your name, and I apologize. It's not personal. I'm just not good with words. At RAR Quiz, ARUR Quiz.
Yeah, we'll go there.
We'll just go with it. All right. His comment was the clones, because at the end of the movie, we see the army of them preparing to protect the Republic, but on the next movie, they apply Order 66 against the Jedis. So it's kind of like the whole, it's like a flip.
It's like poetry. It rhymes.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Now we have Pat McCaffrey.
Oh, you got an easy one.
At colossal_Patty. T.
Yeah.
But not like an E, it's Patty. Okay, yep. Clones for me. The journey to Camino and reveal of this galactic scale secret might be the biggest moment in the prequel trilogy. The assassination attempt feels like a subplot of Viceroy versus Padme. Anakin and Padme doesn't feel like one moment, and a slow burn crescendoing.
Yeah.
At the arena. Side note, I've also sent an obscene amount of
I think it was supposed to be spent
an obscene amount of time thinking about how the Kaminoans parlayed their clone army into a seat in the Senate and played a huge role in the fall of the Republic from
I don't know what that means.
You don't remember parlay from Pirates of the Caribbean?
No.
They used the leverage that they had from being part of that to get a seat in the Galactic Senate and then use it to take over, be a part of that. So
are Kaminoans bad guys?
I don't know. It's kind of weird in some of the later arcs of Clone Wars. You kind of get a feel. The Fives episode.
Yeah. They know more than they're letting on kind of stuff. Yeah.
They feel like bad guys.
Can't trust them with long necks.
Yeah. Did you see that?
You have a long neck.
Did you see that meme going around about it's a giraffe and it's trying to figure out where's the right location for a tie.
Obviously, it's the bottom of the neck. Because when you're wearing a tie, do you wear it up to your chin? No, you wear it down by your shoulders.
Wow, he's really got opinions on this.
Yeah, I've seen that meme 1,000 times before.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I've just had to make it make sense in my own head.
Why don't we talk about this week's poll? Because
we already did.
No,
we didn't. We talked about last week. I keep getting confused because you're messing up.
I corrected it though.
Yes, but you still mess up.
Would anything have been different if Anakin and Padme stayed put on Tatooine like they were told? Two answers: nope or yep. Initial reaction.
Yep.
On Tatooine? No, I think Naboo.
I think you meant to say stuck on Naboo. Stay on Naboo.
No.
Yeah, stay on. They weren't told to stay on Tatooine, Dad.
Yeah, they went.
They were told to stay on Naboo first. Dad.
Yeah, they were chasing.
Dad.
No, wait. I'm confused.
They went to Naboo. They were told to stay on Naboo, and then
and then why'd they go to
because
Tatooine?
Anakin started having the weird dreams, and he's like, I need to go.
Yeah,
save
but
Mom.
I'm thinking about that moment when they get the transmission from Obi-Wan, and Anakin's like, "We need to stay here. We shouldn't go." And
But he
she's
shouldn't
like,
have gone to Tatooine first. So he should have.
We'll talk about it in the main thing. This was initial reactions, but I've got them staying on Tatooine. So,
but yeah. Yes, things would have gone differently.
Yeah, I would probably. Yeah, I don't know how that would be a fun what if to trail off on. But I think things would have been different.
Star Wars what if?
That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's probably gonna be Visions or something.
We've got like 7 minutes left in this episode.
Let's go.
Not really. 12. So.
Speed run.
All right. One of the most interesting scenes in Star Wars film history is the conversation between Count Dooku and Obi-Wan Kenobi on Geonosis. Every single word that Dooku tells Kenobi is true.
It's true.
And Obi-Wan is too blind to see it. And then there's the whole massive Jedi battle on Geonosis, which we don't talk about enough in Star Wars.
For real?
It's fantastic.
It is.
And Act 2. It's Act 2 of the Clone Wars is coming up after this break.
Bulky religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid.
Rebellions are built on hope.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
If you live long enough, you see the same eyes in different people.
I like Count Dooku.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you do?
First, I'm sorry, Clone Wars?
Did I say Clone Wars?
Yes, you did.
I'm so tired.
Attack of the Clones.
Attack of the
I
Clones.
wasn't going to correct you,
okay,
but that's what we're going over.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Should we go over Clone Wars and Rebels?
I think I've got it on the calendar, but I don't know if we could pull that off.
That's a lot.
Clone Wars is so long.
I mean, if we did Rebels, we could do a week for each season, and that'd be 4 weeks. But Clone Wars is like
double that,
7 seasons. So
we could do 2 seasons.
But let's talk Count Dooku. I want to talk about Count Dooku because I like that guy.
Why do you like him so much?
Why do I like him? I think I talked about this last week with Michael. No, I don't think so. I don't think that's why. I think it's because I see him as becoming as a true believer in the Jedi and in the Order, wanting that continually is aware of their compromise and their weakness and their corruption, and they're selling out to the Republic. Okay. Like in High Republic, think about High Republic.
Okay.
We just finished listening to that, right? So High Republic, they're very distinct. The Jedi do what the Jedi do. They work in conjunction with the Republic, but they don't serve the Republic.
No.
They're on their own.
Yeah.
By the time you get to Dooku Jedi Lost, you get to the prequels and you get to this, they're puppets of the Republic. They work for the Republic.
Yeah.
With that, and he sees the corruption of that, right? And so, obviously, when we get to this scene in Attack of the Clones, where Obi-Wan is in the binders, and he's floating up in that Geonosis after he's captured, which is obviously the scene that we're getting ready to talk about. But when he gets to that, he's the bad guy. Okay, I get that. He's completely turned dark side. He's a Dark Lord of the Sith. He's Darth Tyrannus. We know all this. Okay, but this is really where we are introduced to Count Dooku.
Yeah,
we have not seen. I think we see him. We see a glimpse of him, or Obi-Wan sees him having a conversation with the rest of the Trade Federation leaders. Yeah. But then Kenobi sends his transmission back to Coruscant, relays it through Anakin and Padme on Tatooine, and then gets captured.
Right.
And the first time we really see Count Dooku is this moment. He's a bad guy. I know that. But it's bizarre to me to think about how he stands there. And in the book, it's just as good. I know I talk about the books all the time. But he stands there and he tells he tells the Kenobi that the Senate is under the control of Dark Lord of the Sith.
Darth Sidious, yeah.
He tells him, and there's this moment where he asks Kenobi to join him. Let's stop there for a second. He's using Qui-Gon as like leverage against Kenobi in this moment, saying if and Obi-Wan Kenobi's like, if Qui-Gon was here, blah blah blah, and Dooku's like, don't be so sure. I don't know. Maybe Qui-Gon would come with me on my rebellion against the Republic.
Yeah.
On this.
I mean, it also helps that Count Dooku would have been his master.
Yeah. Well, at this point, Count Dooku has left the Order, and Qui-Gon Jinn would have been a full-on Jedi Master, and potentially even a member of the Council by this point.
Mm-hmm.
He was offered that in Master of the Apprentice before Phantom Menace. So the point I'm making is, Kenobi is like, no, he'd never join you, and he's and what it feels like. I remember reading it. I remember seeing it the first time I'm exposed to this part of the story. I'm wondering maybe Count Dooku's not the bad guy here, because he's telling him all these things. There's a Dark Lord of the Sith in charge of the Senate. Come with me. Let's overthrow this guy. Maybe he's not a Jedi anymore for sure, but maybe he's not a bad guy.
Yeah.
And maybe Kenobi needs to, is going to go with him to try to overthrow this Dark Lord of the Sith. What would, let's talk about that. What was that scene like for you guys?
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to think about the first time that I watched the scene, because
because you guys were little kids,
and I wasn't watching the movies for those scenes. I was watching them for the cool space battles and stuff. So I've just become so used to seeing all these scenes. I can't give you an initial impression.
Okay.
My impression of it has just
so
changed.
Do a what if.
A what if Obi-Wan went with Dooku? Okay. Well, first we have to ask if we think they'd be powerful enough to take over or to overthrow Palpatine. Because we saw Mace Windu and 3 other Jedis barely be able to do it, and it was only Anakin.
Jedi's plural is always still Jedi, just so you know.
Jedi, yes. So I mean, you'd have to ask yourself if that would be possible. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but in Clone Wars, don't we see Dooku try to face Sidious once or twice?
Yes,
and it never turned out well for him.
Mm-hmm. Darth Maul actually got close though.
That's true, but first you have to have that question, but what if what if Obi-Wan went with Dooku, and what if they defeated Sidious? What would that new galaxy look like under Dooku's reign?
And is this a dark side thing? Is this him trying to take Obi-Wan Kenobi as his apprentice, BB Nate? Is that what he's trying to do in this scene? Is he trying to lure Kenobi to become his apprentice, kind of in an Asajj Ventress or a Savage Opress type thing, where he's got this apprentice in the wings waiting, this Sith approach, right? You always have to have this backup apprentice ready to go. So if you overthrow your master and you become the master in the Sith, the rule of 2, you've got the apprentice ready to go. Is that what's going on in this scene? Is he preparing that for Kenobi?
I don't actually think so. I think that he believes that Obi-Wan senses that something's wrong with the Senate. Something's wrong with everything that's going on in the Republic. And in basic terms, I don't think that Count Dooku is a bad guy. He has very bad guy tendencies, but he honestly is just a person who doesn't believe what the Jedi or the Republic stand for, and what their beliefs are, and how they're clouded by judgment of politics when that's not what the Jedi should be. And we learned all of that from Dooku Jedi Lost. They weren't taking action. They were worrying about how this would affect treaties. So I think he doesn't believe what the Jedi are, and I think if he took an Obi-Wan, it would be more of a, let's overthrow this so we can control the Senate to be what it always should have been, so we can control the Council to what it should have been. But And then you gotta think he also has kind of dark side tendencies.
He's very dark side.
Guys,
He's a Sith.
the Dark Disciple, when Asajj Ventress is telling Quinlan Vos about the way that she was, trained in the dark side, because then Asajj Ventress trains Quinlan Vos in the dark side in a similar way. It's ugly. It's dark. It's not good.
Yeah.
He's a bad guy
yes.
at this point. But this is something that he must have gone through himself with Sidious at some point, which is what's turned him to this level of darkness with it. It's really because he was such a great Jedi.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's one of the beautiful things about Dooku Jedi Lost is it helps us understand Count Dooku so much better.
Yeah. I mean, I wish we could have seen more about his upbringing in the dark side, but I think it does provide an interesting motivation for the character, and you view him differently in Attack of the Clones after listening to that audio drama.
A spin-off series or Disney Plus series of a young Count Dooku with Qui-Gon Jinn as his Padawan. That's what I want.
All right,
a light side, a dark Dooku, and you could bring in Sifo Dyas into this. You could bring in that other Jedi Master who was Sifo Dyas's master. That lady, I can't remember her name. She was dark side,
right there.
You know what I'm talking about, though.
Yeah.
I think that would be fun.
I think it would be fun to see a TV series, and of course, I wouldn't mind it. It's Star Wars, but I kind of want to keep it to a sequel of the audio drama. I kind of want to see Kevin Scott go with the characters because he did fantastic with the first one, and he could do it again because he knows what he's doing with this stuff. But he's a little busy right now.
Yeah, he is. A lot of High Republic stuff going on. All right, Padme and Anakin on Tatooine, right? This is where we get that funny scene where, I killed...
Not just the men.
Not just... The women and the children, too, and all of that.
I made a lot of fanboys get butthurt this week because of that scene.
How
did you...
So it was a redo of that scene, but it was I loved the prequel trilogy and the original and the sequel trilogy. I loved them all.
You said you liked Star Wars?
They were Star Wars, and I loved them like Star Wars, and I made a lot of people butthurt.
By posting that already?
Because you said you liked Star Wars?
I did. Yeah.
Wow.
It was insane. and it's I don't remember the exact terms, but somebody was oh yeah, and was asking a question, was answering somebody, and I posted a GIF, and it was Finding Nemo, but it was Finding Who Asked.
Right.
It was. I couldn't believe it.
Star Wars is Star Wars.
All right, so let's explain a little bit more. Let's talk through the poll question stuff that we're gonna.
All right.
There's that moment. It's obvious. Obi-Wan knows that Padme and Anakin are on Tatooine because he finds that out, right? And he asks them to relay the message back to Coruscant.
Right.
But it seems pretty clear that he doesn't expect that they aren't expected to go.
No, it's literally just to get the message to him.
So what happens? There's a what if for you, BB Nate. What if they stay on Tatooine?
Most of the movie doesn't happen. They don't get caught on Geonosis. Obi-Wan would actually probably get out.
You think?
Yeah. I don't think he would have to worry about two other companions. He could just...
Well, they would put him in the arena and he would have been stuck by himself.
Yes, but I think he could hold his own if they were... I'm assuming they wouldn't put three monsters against one prisoner. I think that was more for the three prisoners. But I think that most of the movie wouldn't happen. They wouldn't go to Geonosis. They wouldn't really have a problem.
I think Obi-Wan would go with Dooku at that point just as a way to get out. He might play along with it for a second, to try and get out, but what if as he was playing along to get out of there, he started realizing, wait, maybe something's right with this, and then he started agreeing with Dooku. And then Padme and Anakin, I don't know what would happen different with them, because then they'd just be stuck on Tatooine. What do they do at that point?
Yeah, they would have gone. They would have ended up back in Coruscant. Mm-hmm. They would have, or Naboo or something like that.
And then
I bet. Oh, and then Palpatine could have. Well, I'm not.
Do they express their love for each other? Is it the danger of going to their death that causes Padme to say what she says on Geonosis?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean...
Or do they continue to pretend like that they can't be together?
Probably. So does that mean Anakin not doesn't turn to the dark side?
I don't know. I'm just saying it's a fun what if.
Mm-hmm.
And all because they would obey at that point.
Yeah,
but they didn't already, so they wouldn't.
Well, you get they don't rescue Obi-Wan.
But Anakin wants to stay. It's Padme that causes him to leave.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true.
Padme's the problem.
Padme's the freaking problem,
Don't
y'all.
listen.
Padme's
Here you go,
bad.
guys. There's don't listen to the girl.
Okay.
So we love you, Savannah. Okay.
She's not listening this far, I don't think.
Yeah, she doesn't get this far. She doesn't get past banter. She said that.
So we should just not talk about her and banter, and then just completely flood the whole anything else with just talking.
Yeah. Anyway,
and then she would.
All right, and then there's the scene. We got to finish this up, but there's the scene that I think doesn't get enough credit.
Love.
That scene in the arena when the Jedi all come in, Mace comes down the corridor and
this party's over.
This party's over, which we end our show with every week. And the rest of the Jedi are in that arena and they're battling the droids. And I know that they end up losing and the clones have to come in to save the day.
Which is also a cool scene.
It is a cool scene. But I love the idea of the Jedi, this massive Jedi battle. We have never, in the Star Wars, when this comes out, when Attack of the Clones is released, we've never seen anything like this. This is the Jedi at their height. We're seeing dozens of this for at the time when this comes out.
Yeah. Before
we're seeing dozens of Jedi battling together, all those different colored blades. And is there only one purple? Is that still?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Dooku's is like
Dooku.
Or
Windu's.
Windu is the only one there who has.
So it's really just green and blue
for the most part
because there's no yellow.
Yeah, yellow or white or anything like that. No,
there's a lot of yellow there's yellow and white in High Republic.
I know there's one person with white. There's a few people with yellow.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I love that story about her repairing that blood.
What, Ahsoka?
She was just
no
in the book.
High
She was
Republic.
doing it just to like as an exercise to see if it worked, and then she was like bonded with the crystal, and she had to use it.
Do you think Ahsoka knew about that from stories? From that?
Yeah, probably.
Cool.
It was probably passed down the story. Anyway,
I just it's fun. That's a fun sequence, and it's really interesting because this is where I think the movie of Attack of the Clones. Let's get a little critical here. The movie Attack of the Clones sort of loses some of its focus. It loses some of its pacing in this middle act. It feels confused. It feels like we're just kind of meandering along, and that's why when we talk about the middle act on this episode, it's kind of like, let's have some what ifs moments, and it's because it doesn't really move the story.
I mean, Anakin has his first turn to the dark side, which is important.
Well, no, that happened in
you're right.
In the end of the first act.
So yeah, I mean,
we have Mace killing Jango, which is important for the rest of the series, but nothing really important for this movie.
It's so it's kind of like, okay, we just got to get through these scenes and some big battles and some fun stuff and really bad dialogue about the love and all
Anakin
of that.
losing his hand.
That's
next. See, this is my point. All of the major events seem to happen
the beginning and end.
At the beginning and the end of Attack of the Clones.
Yeah,
interesting. And that's next week. The largest ground battle in Star Wars film history is followed by not one but two lightsaber duels with Count Dooku.
Two for the price of one, y'all.
It was good. Very Empire Strikes Back vibes during the Dooku Anakin.
Yeah, I noticed that.
The battle. And then the Jedi began to realize that all is not what it seems. And that'll be the next episode. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
Anything else?
Yeah, so there's a new Star Wars shooter from EA rumored, which I thought they were done with EA.
No, they're still doing stuff.
No, they were still going to be doing
just they're not exclusive.
Okay. Well, there's reportedly a new Star Wars shooter coming from EA to begin development this year, and it's not going to be Battlefront 3 or anything like that. It's going to be a smaller type game similar to Squadrons. Nathan and I are hoping for something kind of along the lines of, gamers will understand what we're talking about. Rainbow Six Siege, not that style of game, just because you can't really replicate that, but like that format, small multiplayer games between two small teams, or like something like Overwatch or something to that extent. I think that in Star Wars, focused on multiplayer, would be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Very cool.
And this is really cool as well. A Star Wars Black Series Cal Kestis figure It's now available for pre-order.
I didn't realize they didn't have a Cal Kestis yet.
Well, they decided to get the Purge Trooper out.
Yeah, we got the Purge Trooper.
We got that with the GameStop pre-order, which was really cool. It's
funny they did that before Cal Kestis, the main character.
The most annoying enemy type.
Oh, Purge Troopers?
Oh. Yeah.
Yes, they were so annoying.
Kevin Feige is breaking geek fans' hearts.
Not mine. No.
Not that it was ever really a thing. I don't know if anybody. I mean, this is like Mike Zero level rumor.
This is above Mike Zero.
This makes Mike Zero look credible if people actually believe this. But there was like this rumor going around that there could be an MCU Star Wars crossover, and Kevin Feige was like, no.
No, really?
Yeah, so
I don't get to see Spider-Man swinging next to you.
It just feels weird to even think about.
Yeah,
that
I don't like that.
Oh my gosh, I would absolutely love though to see Spider-Man having Yoda on the back of him and just geeking out about Empire. That would be awesome.
That's true because he is a Star Wars fan.
Never mind, I'm in. All right. All right. Well, thanks guys for listening. You know, make sure you check out everything going on tatooinesons.com. You can go to flow.page/tatooinesons and you can get t-shirts. I know we sold a bunch of Porg shirts this week.
Oh, nice.
We got some good Porg shirts because people like Porgs. Turbis rocks.
You're right.
We sold Porg shirts and stickers, a mask, a Porg our friends, not food mask.
Nice.
Somebody made a mask of that, which is great. Hey, do it. You do you. With that, so yeah, check it out and follow us on all of our socials and all that other stuff. But
all that jazz. Yeah, thanks for putting up with our weirdness and us trying to get through the second act of Attack of the Clones, even though there's really not all that interesting stuff to talk about. Yeah, just, can follow us on all our social. Well, we're more active on Facebook than anything. Twitter's kind of
weird,
It
difficult.
comes in waves.
Yeah. So follow us on Facebook so you can see when we post all our weirdness. But thanks for putting up with us.
Yeah, thank you for making it all this way, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm sure that some people at least did, and that's enough for me.
If we put
and for all three of you, you're welcome.
Yes.
Okay.
And please remember to leave a review at some point. It really helps us make us happy. But if you don't, then that's fine. We won't know who you are, but
you're not allowed to listen anymore. You're not my friend.
Hey, don't be like that. So, yeah. All right. Well, that'll pretty much do it for this week. Anything else you guys want to say?
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you, always.
This party's over.
I like that Wookiee.
Don't get technical with me. Join, please.
Yep, yep.